right, I'd say let's begin. We've got a couple more attendees joining. So let's get started. So welcome everybody. My name is Rebecca Zabarski and I'm the Director of Marketing at Parrot Analytics. Thank you all for joining Parrot Analytics Live. This is our Thought Leadership and Strategy webinar series. This edition is called Never Guess Again, because we are focusing on real-world business challenges that our own clients face and their data-driven solutions. We have a few minutes at the end of the webinar reserved for a Q&A, where we will address some of the questions that we collected from the registration page. And if we have enough time, then we'll answer a few questions from the chat box. So once the presentation starts, I will be manning the chat. And rest assured, I'll take down all of your questions. If we don't get to them today, then we will follow up with them later. The webinar will be about 40-ish minutes with the time for questions, and then we'll end sharply at or before 11:45 a.m. Pacific. Quickly, I do want to especially welcome our Demand 360 Lite and of course our enterprise customers. We're very happy to have you here, and also acknowledge that many of you are probably joining from faraway time zones and it might be late. So we want to thank you for spending time with us, whatever time of day or evening it is. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our analyst, Alex Cameron, who's been waiting so patiently in the wings. He joins us from London, where he tends to our EMEA clients. So now, Alex, you can go ahead and everyone, please enjoy.
Great. Thank you so much, Rebecca, and welcome everyone. I'm delighted to be able to give you a sneak peek of our enterprise product this evening or afternoon, depending where you are, and show how easy it is to gain actionable insight from just a couple of clicks. We've called this session, as you can see from the slide, Never Guess Again. And over the next 45 minutes, I'm going to show you how you can use Demand 360 to answer significant business questions on the fly. I think it's important for you guys to realize that Demand 360 sits alongside our consultancy service, which gives you access to a team of dedicated TV experts like myself. Here in EMEA, we have almost half a century of TV experience across our team. We're TV fans first and foremost, and then entertainment industry professionals second. And we're really, really passionate about content and the way that we can use Parrot's wealth of data to empirically track audience consumption all around the world. If you're in London, we're based out of TV Centre here, so do reach out if you'd like to meet up, be it virtually or in person, to discuss anything that I'm going to show you this evening. So I'm sure you're very keen to know what's going to be on the agenda. I'm only planning on taking up just under 40 minutes of your time, and then hopefully we'll have a little bit left over for questions after. So today we're going to answer the following questions. Number one, how demand for tentpole programming is a leading indicator of subscriber growth in today's television landscape. Two, how to find the white space on platforms and in territories to make sure your content is reaching the total available audience. How to identify the regional differences in content slates across different competing OTT providers. Also, we're going to let you know how to spot emerging and macro and micro genre trends to help your business stay ahead of the curve. And then finally, we're going to introduce something that we're all very, very excited about here at Parrot, our new talent module, and specifically how talent, you can actually select the right talent to ensure the relevance and audience appeal in a specific market. So our thesis here at Parrot Analytics is that we now live in an attention economy. You're all tuning in now. Thank you very much and giving me your attention, which I'm incredibly thankful for, because you could actually be spending your time on so many other things, particularly at this time of the day. And that really is the same in the television world. There's so many shows, so many platforms that you could be watching as we speak. And it's very, very difficult for people and companies particularly to get a holistic view on where those eyeballs are actually concentrating. So what we set out to do here at Parrot is to measure that attention economy. And we believe that if you take all those billions of empirical signals which are being generated all the way around the world, all the time and every day, we can effectively see how people engage with content. Once we've done that, we can then start to answer some of the biggest questions the entertainment industry has to ask. Things like, what should I produce? What should I green light? How should I market a show? And how should I sell a show? And that's basically what we do. So how do we actually go about measuring this attention economy? Well, here we're all about helping media companies make better decisions by using a metric that we call demand. Demand is calculated by capturing a variety of data signals from around the world and weighting them based on how consumers interact with content. First of all, we take billions of signals from a variety of sources on a daily basis, and these can be from social media, social video, blogs, wiki pages. You can see them all there on the left, fan sites, critic rating sites, and also most significantly, we're actually capturing those who are either illegally downloading or streaming content. Next, we then extract that signal from the noise by using time spent as a proxy for demand. So if somebody is just clicking subscribe, then we say that's a fairly passive impression, and then that'll be weighted lower. But when somebody is actually consuming a piece of content, then that will be weighted significantly higher. Parrot then tracks demand internationally in all markets, be that the US, the UK, Bangladesh, even in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we're very platform agnostic. So it doesn't matter whether a piece of content sits on linear or on a streaming service or indeed both. We're capturing all of these signals. The currency of demand then lets us effectively benchmark performance cross-platform and cross-territory, no matter which service a piece of content actually sits on. So now we understand the concept, we can begin to use demand as a leading indicator in measuring audience consumption across all streaming services. Because of our open network of data, we can then begin to look at global market share and then use this to predict subscriber numbers ahead of companies' quarterly updates. And what we're looking up here is the market share of demand for original programming on the main streaming services from Q1 2020 to Q2 2021. And if we look at Q1 2020, we can see that back then, sort of pre-pandemic, if we can think back that far, Netflix comfortably had considerably over 50% of all demand, but this lion's share of engagement has begun to drop off significantly quarter by quarter, as you can see there. Netflix have also reported that their subscriber numbers are falling, but they're really saying that the pandemic is the root cause of that. And of course, pandemic, coronavirus, COVID-19 has played a huge part in shifting people's views and viewing habits. But we can quite clearly see from this chart that more services are beginning to steal that attention away from Netflix and begin to solidify their positions within the streaming world. I think a really great example of this is Disney Plus. So if we look at Q1 2020, the demand there is mainly made up by the launch of just one title, and that's The Mandalorian. Things stayed fairly flat actually until Q4 2020. Then we had the release of Hamilton, then the Marvel machine began to kick in at the early part of this year of WandaVision, and then it's continued to grow with the introduction of Loki over the past few months. Another interesting point here is that Disney's introduction of their Starz service in certain markets this year has also helped to keep eyeballs on their platform and also reduce churn. Apple TV has continued to grow, as has HBO Max, whereas Amazon Prime Video have remained fairly stable. So I think that's a really great example of how demand for tentpole programming can be a leading indicator of subscriber growth in today's television landscape. But what other business questions can we answer? Well, the first one we're going to set out to do, and we're going to do this by using the power of Demand 360, is how I can find the white space opportunities in any given territory to make sure my content is reaching its total available audience. So we can do this using something that we call our demand versus supply module. So you can see from the left-hand bar, Demand 360 does have an incredible amount of modules within it. You can see that we have compare, demand, market share, amongst others. And in fact, I'm going to talk you through all of these different modules as we go through the presentation. But for now, let's just focus solely on demand versus supply. So this module really allows us to get both a global and also regional insight within market-specific options. And you can see across the top that you have the ability to filter by genre, but also by an abundance of other features and searchable options. In this instance, we're focusing on the United States, but you could easily select another market or even worldwide if you so wanted. Now let's add another variable into the mix. I'm going to select UK only content. This means we will only select content which has been identified as originating in the United Kingdom. You can also see here we have the ability to slice by release type. So whether that's weekly or available immediately to binge, release date, if you're searching for something more recent, say, and even the number of series. And we're finding that longevity of content, particularly in the emerging fast and AVOD landscapes, is becoming an important variable for their success. So now what we're presented with is a lovely, colourful quadrant of triangles, indicating the top left that we can see that the certain subgenres of shows which are in high demand and also in low supply. And this one, particularly in that left-hand quadrant, is what we're interested in this instance. We can then use our zoom feature to zoom in a bit further and look exactly at which of these subgenres are falling within this target group. These are revealed in the left-hand visualization, but you can also surface them by highlighting any of the shapes. As you can see here, I've highlighted LGBTQI+. But we can also click on the right hand to uncover which shows are generating this demand in this particular market. So in order to answer the question, the green area of high demand and low supply should be viewed as the opportunity area in this instance. Subgenres which then fall into the purple coloured bottom right-hand quadrant should perhaps be best avoided, as we're calling this the oversaturated section of this viewing platform. So the key takeaway from this analysis is that the following subgenres which should be under consideration, and these are dystopian, LGBTQI+, and those of an apocalyptic nature. All of these themes are particularly relevant to what's going on in the world at the moment, but it's interesting that they're very much underrepresented in terms of the content, and that's clear here because demand is considerably outstripping supply. So that's demand versus supply. Let's go into the second question. This is, I'm interested in tracking a show performance with a certain territory across multiple platforms, and how can I compare shows from different streaming services? So you'll be pleased to learn that Demand 360 has a real plethora of compare options, as you can see here. So you can not only just track shows, but you can look at platforms, you can look at markets, and one of the other powerful and unique aspects of the platform is that you can create your own custom portfolios, which can be a mixture of all three. So to answer this question, we're going to look at shows. So again, we're presented with a wide range of search options with the opportunity to select both singular or multiple markets, as well as certain timeframes. As default, we always default to the last 30 days, but you can change this to whichever you prefer. So let's go for the last year in this particular instance. After we press apply, we're now presented with the top 10 shows globally over the last 365 days, complete with their trend line. And you can see here the impact that WandaVision had when it was launched on Disney Plus earlier this year. Remember that this is a cross-platform view, so you can now see how shows from a variety of different services are performing side by side. One of the great features of this is we have the ability to download this as either a CSV file, so if you wish to carry out further analysis in Excel, or by even ingesting it into your business intelligence tool of your choice, you can, or you can also download a PNG and include it in a presentation or an email to share with colleagues. There's an endless scroll of titles here on the left. The visualization only shows 10 at a time, but you can just select and unselect the ones you wish to be present in the visualization. Now we can take this one step further by plotting those shows' performance on our demand distribution curve using our multiplier metric, which is benchmarked against the market average. And at Parrot, we found that demand-based performance adheres to a standard or asymmetrical distribution. So these shows can then be plotted on this curve, and you can see not only how well it performs against the average of a show, but also how many shows perform at a similar level. So of the 17,000 shows of our database, 65% fit into the average category, 8.6% are deemed good, while 2.2% are described as outstanding, and only 0.2% of all shows that we track fit into our exceptional bucket. This is a really great way to compare and contrast how well shows perform, not just globally, but also in individual territories. Now on to question 3. How can I understand if an acquired title will be successful and resonate in each one of my target regions? So no pun intended here, but Demand 360 really is called that for a reason. It does give the end user a 360-degree view of the performance of any singular piece of content in our database. So in order to harness the power of this, we first use our dynamic search function to try and surface the piece of content in question. For this example, I'm going to use Netflix's recent success, The Outer Banks. So as you can see, you type in The Outer Banks and anything else which it thinks may be similar in theme appears within the dynamic search. So when we first land on the show page, we're greeted with some information about the title in question. So that includes metadata around its origin, length, genre, and as well as a brief synopsis and the ability to watch a trailer. We also get an indication on the show's latest demand ranking over the past 24 hours in this case, and it's currently ranking 183 out of all of the 17,000 titles we're tracking, and this has meant that it's actually fallen 37 places in that global rank over the past week. You also get a sneak preview of our metric called People Are Also Watching, but more on that later. And as we move down the page, we are able to see for the first time our brand new visualization, which is called the Pulse. The Pulse is a very powerful tool, and we use it to visualize the show's overall global performance within the past year, with potential indication of the show's future performance. And we do this by looking at things such as travelability, so how well that particular piece of content travels to a different territory, reach, demand, which you've already mentioned, momentum, so the speed in which the demand is being generated, franchisability, so looking at the travelability, but then also the opportunity to take that to other markets, particularly if it's deemed to be more formatable, and then finally longevity, which is what we touched on earlier, and becoming a very key metric for certain fast and AVOD platforms. As we continue this scroll, the next up is the aforementioned demand distribution curve. I think we all kind of understand that now, but Outer Banks firmly ranks within our outstanding bucket, currently generating 26.7% more demand than average. We can also see that the show peaked an impressive almost 34 times the average and earlier, and actually meant that it crept into our list of exceptional performers, which is a rarity in most cases. So we've talked a lot about what makes up demand earlier on in this presentation, but here we start to uncover some of those signals which actually make up that demand. So you can see here we have the IMDb rating, Google Trend, YouTube views, and also social interactions. We also track research, which is really important. So we do that by looking at the number of Wikipedia page views. We have Twitter interactions. We have Daily Motion views. But most importantly, this gives us the ability to see the sheer volume of our P2P network. And you can see that today we've tracked almost 80 million streams for this particular title. We track almost 500 million of these streams monthly from anonymous endpoints. So that's an incredibly robust data set, particularly when you compare it to the extrapolated TV viewing panels for linear television particularly. And then these anonymized endpoints are incredibly useful and important because they then allow us to track what other people are watching across our open network of P2P data. So in this case, Outer Banks viewers also enjoy watching The Flash, The White Lotus, and Ted Lasso, to name but a few. So next up is our trended market performance viz. And this allows you to track demand at both a daily and weekly interval across any given time frame. You can see here that the Canadian fans of Outer Banks came to the series slightly later than most, with that pink trend line peaking a few days later than some of the other markets. But I think the most powerful visualization when it comes to our cross-market performance is our global heat map. Rating content demand within a specific market showcases which shows resonate most with local audiences. And then a travelability showcases which content travels across borders and further narrows down content suggestions with high return on investment for those global platforms. So in this example, markets to potentially enter, if you were looking to move this to free to air, would be Germany, Canada, and France. And actually slightly ahead of time here, we're going to move on to our final question. And this one concerns the new module that we're all very excited to share with you. The question itself is, how should we select talent to ensure relevance and audience appeal in specific markets worldwide? And to do this, I'd love to introduce our new talent module. And this can be answered very comprehensively using this new section of Demand 360. So the demand for talent can be tracked over 10,000 plus individuals, and that's in an easy to access ranked list. We can choose global demand or select insights from over 46 markets. And we can also preview talent metadata for each of these particular talents. And you can get regional insights with market specific options. And you can also customize your analysis across adjustable timeframes. And I think you'll agree, it looks wonderful. And we're so proud to have all this talent tracked on the platform. You can look at things such as top actors, trending artists, trending Generation Zs, top upcoming actors, to name just a few. We can also look at the total talent profile in one page, so we can measure everything that matters in the talent demand insight page, whether that's in-depth talent metadata. We can look at known roles, awards ceremonies, their actual worldwide demand rank currently, and also content rankings. And we can also measure market performance in a similar way over time that we did with shows, which I showed you in the previous visualization. And this can also be shown within that similar worldview that we looked at earlier. We can also follow talent timelines to keep up with roles and awards, and talent info summarizes those roles and rewards, and data is then recorded and displayed in an easy to read chronological timeline. You can also use the talent module to uncover important talent history, so we can dive deeper into talent works and roles. We can easily access their top shows and awards, and we can also get comprehensive biographical data, social handles, all on one page. And I think one of the cool and really, really impressive things that you can now do with this module is that you can view trending talent comparisons. So we can select 2 pieces of talent for comparison, view the trending comparisons for these types of in-demand talent, and then quickly evaluate talent for your next project. And these are some views of that particular module within the Demand 360 platform. So you can easily compare 2 people. You can track their shifting daily demand rank in any market over any time period. And you can also get a peak global and peak domestic demand, as well as the top 10 markets year to date. So that's it really for the slightly ahead of time. I do apologize, Rebecca, but I hope you don't feel I rushed through that too quickly. But for the platform demo, but I do believe we do have some questions that I can go ahead and answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Alex. That was an excellent in-depth view of Demand 360 Enterprise, answering some of those business questions. And we've had a few people interact in our chat, but I am going to bring up some of the questions that people asked when they first registered. So let me pull those up, and we'll start with the first. What are the most interesting emerging genres in the content market today?
Okay, that's a great one. So I think the emergence of non-scripted, particularly over the pandemic, has been a really, really interesting one. Here at Parrot, we noticed a real increased demand for long-tail documentaries and that type of content over the second quarter of 2020, when the majority of the world was either locked down or in quarantine. I think this was in part chicken and egg, because more time spent at home led to an actual growth of these fast services, particularly in the United States. And they had a huge amount of this type of programming on the platform. But then I think when we talk about new launches, and less about long tail, I think one of the problems a lot of streaming services were facing, particularly around non-scripted, was how best to structure their release schedules. And this is definitely something that they've definitely worked out now and are seeing definite rewards, particularly in terms of demand. So historically, scripted content was always king, and that always originally performed best in a bingeable format. But then non-scripted entertainment shows, ones that were particularly working on linear platforms and ones that we do track demand for because we are platform agnostic, particularly dating shows, didn't necessarily suit this because they were used to that kind of linear distribution. So Netflix, loads of other people kind of experimented with this. And then they started dropping single episodes or parts of seasons, really trying to maintain that buzz in a similar way that you'd have on linear. And I think that that's really interesting that that's worked. And that's also then kind of gone full circle with the platforms actually starting to do similar things with scripted content. So yeah, it's really interesting how they've done that. Disney Plus, probably the leading example of that, the way they've kind of dropped weekly episodes of The Mandalorian, Loki, etc. And then staying on that similar non-scripted theme, we're seeing huge popularity for sports content of late. This definitely started with The Last Dance. That was obviously a huge success, and we've talked about that at length at various other Parrot events. But it's really taken hold on Amazon Prime Video. Initially, it was a play to sit alongside their live sports offering, but they've actually seemed to have moved away from live sports but continued the kind of the adoption of sports documentaries and really becoming the destination for that type of programming. And it really feels like that the other streaming services need to catch up on that. Netflix have started to see its importance. They've just had quite a bit of success with Malice at the Palace, and that's definitely a notable standout. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Disney take their ownership of ESPN, maybe use that to leverage some deals, get some more bigger sports talent on platform, and then we might start to see more. So I think that's going to be a really, really emerging market for non-scripted.
Yeah, and you touched on the release strategies, right? So an episodic release versus a weekly episodic release versus binge. We are speaking about that soon. So we do a lot of work in terms of determining what's best for a particular platform. So I just wanted to share with the attendees that we will be presenting on that later this week. And for our Demand 360 subscribers, we'll share that report within the platform too. So you can kind of keep an eye out for that within the next probably week or two after we present. A lot of interesting insights around that particular strategy. Let's go on to the next question. And then Alex, just so you know, we have a few questions I'm going to bring at you after these from the chat. So question 2, okay. Are we seeing a shift to data specialists who will rule programming? Interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think we'd be really, really wrong. And I think everyone who's sort of present today would agree with me on this, that we'd be wrong to assume that our viewing choices aren't in some way now being led by an algorithm. And I think that's why it's really, really important to have empirical data at your fingertips, similar to the data that we provide at Parrot when you're making these types of content decisions. It definitely shouldn't lead that creative process, but I think it can definitely inform it. We've seen in the past that Netflix and the others have definitely transcended past this idea of genre and are certainly looking at themes and moods. And that's something that we touched on with the supply and demand module earlier on in the presentation. And that's definitely no secret. And I think that, I don't know, I think we've worked with many different broadcasters and production groups recently, concept testing ideas. So we can do this by taking comp shows with same thematic building blocks. We can then overlay the demand in that region and then build out analyses from there. So if you'd like to discuss like this idea of concept testing as part of the creative process, please do reach out to either Rebecca or myself, and we can discuss this afterwards.
Excellent. Okay, so the third question has something a little bit more to do with the, I would say, demand measurement, and that is simply, are we tracking YouTube?
Yeah, there's a very, very simple answer to that question. And I did touch on it slightly earlier, but that's good that somebody's actually asked it again. Yes, we do. So we look at video views, we look at page followers, and also other metrics. And then this goes into the algorithm that creates demand. But we also don't look at just YouTube. So we conduct social listening through Twitter, and then we also track Facebook and Instagram data too. So that, married with the great insight that we can get through our piracy data and the P2P streams, and then that coupled with the internet research, we then really do have a great holistic view of performance.
Awesome. Okay, so here's a couple questions that are coming through our chat, and I might be able to help with some of these too. But the first one that I want to bring up for you, Alex, to get your insights are, there's a question about other elements that drive demand. So the question is, can you pinpoint the specific elements or themes of titles that are driving the demand? This would be outside of general factors such as genre, platform, etc. This makes me think of our content genome, but I'll let you answer.
Oh yeah, definitely, and that's something that I was sort of alluding to, perhaps not brilliantly, with our concept testing. So yeah, we actually do track lots and lots of different aspects of a show. So like Rebecca said, it's not just around the genre or the subgenre, we're also looking at moods and themes, keywords, and actually we do have harvesters within region who do watch pieces of content and then do look at it at a minute by minute level and then pick out certain themes. And as I say, we know that the streaming platforms are doing this too, in order to kind of like enhance our viewing experience. So yes, we do track that. And I think the way that we can then use that to leverage the demand, track that over a given time period, we can also overlay different social factors. So obviously the pandemic had a huge impact in viewing habits, and we noticed that when we track demand. But then you could also track that against genres, themes, etc. So it's all about taking those different data sets, picking the correct ones, and then really using those to tell the best story.
Yeah, okay, the next question actually is for our talent demand product. And the question is talent only acting? Any metrics tracking directors, producers, how do they differ?
Yeah, so we are. I mean, I don't know if you want to answer this one, because you're definitely across this as well. But we are tracking not just TV talent, it's movie talent, it's musicians, it's all over, and it's a database of around 10,000 people at the moment, but it's growing daily. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is that we're also looking at behind the camera type people too. So it is directors and producers and showrunners. You have your high profile business people. We can look at politicians. Our database, I would say, is probably majority in front of camera for now, but we're onboarding new talent all the time. This is going to be an extremely powerful way for people to evaluate talent. There really isn't anything that uses the amount of data that we're ingesting right now with the current talent measurement tools that are out there. And so, we're actually, we're publishing a few articles very soon about the valuations of some of these overall deals, right? How can you really determine how much someone is worth? We're also looking at the comparison of talent versus IP. That's a huge conversation that's happening right now. And that's something that we're analyzing with our new talent demand tool. What's driving demand for content or for IP or a franchise in general? Is it a particular person or actor, character, or is it the IP itself? So these are the real data science heavy questions that we're able to answer using talent demand. And we do have a very wide variety of people that we're tracking within that 10,000 number. And like I said, we're adding more every day. So if you are interested, we're doing demos of that currently. We've just launched it. And so you can reach out to Alex via this email right here, or our support@parrotanalytics.com. And we can show you more about that talent demand product. So hopefully that answers that question. I have another question here. This has to do a little bit more with content valuation. This is something fairly new. And Alex, if let's answer as best we can, since we have a little bit more time.
Yeah, sure.
So this is the question. Do you look at demand relative to the budget of a show or movie? Because generating $100 million of revenue is great if it costs $10 million to make a show, but not so much if it costs $150 million, right? So like production versus revenue, how can we utilize demand to sort of weigh those and evaluate that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that we're looking at the moment, and that's something which is going to be available soon as part of our content valuation module. You've probably got a little bit more on that than I do, Rebecca, at the moment, in terms of the release schedule.
Right. So content valuation, like Alex said, this is coming up. It will be a new product again from our data team. And so it allows you to answer that exact question. How much is a show worth to a platform or network or whatever distributor they choose? That work stream, our content valuation work stream, would allow you to answer this, right? How much revenue can you predict using all of these demand elements that we're able to look at? Things like theme, genre, mood, release type. Like I said, we have when we talk about those factors, we typically refer to our content genome. This is our content supply side that we utilize. So it's looking at all the various factors behind a TV show, and our content valuation product would allow you to do those analyses to say, okay, based on a lot of different factors, based on the demand for a particular show in a territory, we can help determine what's the value of that content based on something that we would call affinity or an overlap of audiences. Let's say you're talking about a particular show and you are, pitching it to a certain platform. What are the chances that that's going to bring in new customers, right? That's the goal here for most streaming services, is to attract and retain customers. So how can you actually quantify the numbers of people bringing in or of a show bringing in new subscribers? All of that is part of our content valuation product. Again, that's in early stages. You wouldn't necessarily see that yet in Demand 360, which is what Alex has walked you through, but it will be in there soon. And now we have a couple more minutes. So let me see if I can pull one more question. Okay, well, there's an easy question actually that I'm going to quickly answer. Somebody asked if this type of analysis could be applied to movies when playing online, but also to the theatrical market demand. So very simply, in terms of movie demand, the answer is yes. Again, movie demand is something that has been requested from our team for many, many years. We've been focusing mostly on TV demand up until, of course, we just launched talent. We will be able to show movie demand soon. Can't give exact dates, just like I can't with content valuation, but our product team will be very excited to hear that there's so much interest in this. And we will, eventually be able to share hard dates of when those products will launch. In terms of the theatrical market demand, there's obviously different inputs in terms of demand that we would track for streaming movies versus theatrical. There's a lot of, different media and marketing spends on theatrical versus streaming. I can't answer that very thoroughly right now. It's a good question for our data measurement and data science team. So that's something I might be able to follow up with you, whoever asked that. And then let's see if we have another question here. Okay, so this is interesting. Alex, I think that maybe you can answer this just in terms of how you approach this now. The question is there a product in the future that tells you comps, right? So we know that one of the most helpful things, and I'm sure things that you do day to day as a client, working with clients, is figuring out what are the right shows or pieces of content to compare against. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach that?
Yes, certainly. So this again sort of feeds back into what we were discussing previously around our content genome. So what we do is we look for comparable titles. We basically look at the building blocks of those titles. So kind of the themes, as I've said before, and also the mood, and then can also then look at other circumstances. So the types of casting. We can also look at where the show originated from, the age of a particular show, etc., and then take those building blocks, apply demand to it, and then use those as comparable shows. And that can be used for concept testing. That can be used if we're trying to help determine the impact of a new title on a show, on a particular platform's new slate, for example, and also answer various other business questions. So yes, we can do that, and that's something that we look at. It's not something that's available within the Demand 360 module, but we can certainly help you find those titles, build out a custom portfolio, and then you'd be able to use the platform to interrogate the data surrounding those titles in a similar way that we've shown today using the Demand 360 platform.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up the webinar session. I wanted to share one more thing with all the attendees. Alex has walked us through Demand 360 Enterprise, which he was showing you there's a lot of capability to compare shows. We do have a product called Demand 360 Lite that is really an entry-level look at all of this demand data. And it's much more accessible in terms of the cost. It's a $99 a month fee or subscription, and then also it's discounted to $59 a month if you sign up for the annual subscription. So Demand 360 Lite is top level insights. You wouldn't necessarily be using that compare module. If you look really closely into what Alex is sharing right now, you can see that on the left. Instead, you would be able to look at top shows, top platforms, market data. And of course, you would also get access to all of our insights, reports, white papers, and exclusive analyses. So it's a really powerful tool if you are an independent producer trying to track your own individual show, if you're an analyst tracking, shows on your own platform or on others. Of course, like I said, getting access to all those reports goes back to 2015. It's a very powerful tool. We are going to share a 30% off link in the chat. I just shared that. So this is only for our webinar attendees. I just shared, yep, it should be out now. You can click that and a 30% off coupon will be activated. We'll also share a recording of this presentation in an email. So, thank you all for attending, but you can always refer back to it later once we email you. And then of course you can use that coupon code. And that concludes the Parrot Analytics Live. Alex, thank you so much for that in-depth walkthrough of Demand 360 Enterprise. I hope this was very helpful for everyone who attended. We really appreciate your time. Keep your eyes peeled on our social media for more Parrot Analytics Live webinar sessions. We do these about every month, and there's a lot of exciting things to come in terms of our products. So really appreciate everyone attending. Thank you, Alex. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day or evening and the rest of the week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.